Okay, so let's get started. My name's Lauren Fisher, and I've been a professional photographer since 1978. And I started using Lightroom back in the mid 90s, and it has become a necessity for anyone serious about photography and wanting to make their pictures look the way they saw them. Uh, I use Photoshop in combination with Lightroom. All of my photos go into Lightroom, and about 85% of them only see Lightroom. I don't do anything in Photoshop to them. Lightroom has become so good at most things that you don't need Photoshop to do that anymore. The one thing that Photoshop does much, much better than Lightroom is cloning of larger items or just cloning in general. Lightroom has a little bit of cloning capability where if you have a power line you want to get rid of, you can probably do that. But Photoshop still is just much more powerful. The Photoshop CC version that they released in October, which they call Photoshop 2019, introduced a new way to do cloning, and they call that content-aware fill. So let me go ahead and share my screen now, and we'll see if everything's working properly here. Oh, I missed a button. There we go. So you should now be seeing my Lightroom screen. If you're not, there's a problem. So let me go ahead and so one great thing about Lightroom and Photoshop is they're sister programs, so you can use one program to talk to the other. So let me just pull up this photo. So if I want to edit this photo in Photoshop, once I have it open in Lightroom, all I have to do is right click on it, come down to edit in, and edit in Photoshop. And it's going to ask me if I want to edit the copy using the changes I've made in Lightroom, and I do. And so now it's going to jump over and fire up Photoshop. So there's that photo in Photoshop with all the changes that I made in Lightroom. So in the good old days of Photoshop, well, let me step back a step. There are many ways to do everything in Photoshop. So I'm not going to show you absolutely every way to do things. I'm going to show you one, maybe two, but and concentrate on the new content aware. So say I had this picture from Iceland and I decided for some reason I didn't want to have this guy standing in the picture. Well, that's pretty easy to get rid of. There's a couple of ways to do it. One way is to use the spot healing brush and click on that and come down and just go over whatever it is on the screen that you want to get rid of. And if my computer starts running really slow, I'm going to jump back and quit Lightroom because sometimes it's too much for it. Okay, so now if I just copy that, cover that over, boom. So in an image like this, that's plenty. You know, that does a really nice job. And if I zoom in on that, you'll see there's a little remnant there of reflection that I missed. So I can come back and tap that purple and it's gone. Pretty cool. So if this is something that I wanted to save, if I hit save and then close the file, it's going to go right back. It's going to make a copy back in my Lightroom catalog. And so I can then work on it more in Lightroom. So let's jump over to another photo. This one's from Tuscany. So let's come to edit in. So I right clicked on the photo, edit in Photoshop, and now it will fire up Photoshop, hopefully. There we go. So now we're in Photoshop. And if I tried to use that spot healing brush, say I wanted to get rid of this tree. I don't know why I would, but say I wanted to get rid of that tree. If I tried using that spot healing brush, it would never work. So even if I just want to get rid of the trunk, I can just highlight it and we'll see how much we can, what happens here. Yeah, see it. So it copied some of the vineyard back up into the tree. Not what we want. So I'm going to undo Command Z or Control Z on Windows. And in the old days, meaning before October, you would select an area, or you could select an area, say the trunk of that tree. So I'm just using the lasso tool and just selecting an area. And you might go up under Edit and Fill. And in Fill, a window pops up, and you have your choice of putting a color in it or content aware. So if you hit content aware and OK, it's going to look for the content that's around that image, and I'll show you the progress bar as it's going across. And it's going to take content, it's going to figure out what's around it, and hey, it did a pretty nice job on that one. Take the content and add it to what's missing. So essentially, you're seeing behind the tree, which is pure magic, right? You can see if I zoom in a little bit here, at the bottom, it didn't do a real good job around there, but we could go back in and fix that, but did better than I thought it would. So let me zoom back out. So if I unselect, and I'm going to undo and bring the tree back, there it is. So if you would select an area, say the top of the tree, again, I'm just using the lasso tool up here, and then go up under Edit and Fill and select Content Aware. Now it's a little bit bigger section of picture, so it's going to take a little while. So my guess is it will think about what else is down in the picture, not just what's up in the sky, and add trees, mountains to this part of the picture also. I should take up a collection and get a more powerful computer, but we'll make do with what we have. So as that's churning, we'll let it cook. Keep moving, thank you. There you go. So you can see right at the bottom here, let me zoom in. It used tree trunk, it added trees from down here, put some of the hazy mountainside in there. So it didn't do a real good job on the bottom of that picture. Okay. So that one I would boo and hiss Photoshop for the effort. Although in the old days, meaning before October, I would have been pretty happy with the upper part of the picture, and then I would have come back and redone this part of the picture and redo this part and do it in 4 or 5 chunks and maybe get away with it. So what's new as of October is, rather than doing Fill and Content Aware, if you go under Edit, there is now Content Aware Fill. So I'm just going under the Edit menu, come down to Content Aware Fill. And if you don't have the Photoshop 2019 version, you won't see that. So that's one way to tell if you upgraded. And if you haven't upgraded, you should. This is worth it. So now it's giving you a whole new window, and it gives you lots of options here in the window. So on the left side, it's showing me the area that I selected, and it's showing me the mask of the sampling area that it's using to sample the picture. So on the right, it's then showing the result. So let me move this over a little bit, make sure everybody's seeing the whole window here. So you can see in the result, it looks pretty much like it did when I did the Edit and Content Aware Fill. It's adding trees, it's adding all this stuff from down below. Well, that didn't help me any. So as it's processing. So you can see now I have a brush over here on the left side, that the circle and a minus sign in it. So by selecting up here in the upper left, the minus, I can subtract from the area that's being sampled, and so it won't consider that area for the photo. So I'm going to make that brush a little bit bigger. I could change size here, or I can hit the right bracket on my keyboard and just make that bigger, so I can I'm just going to erase all of this part of the picture, the sampling area. And now in the preview, you'll see it's going to clean this area up for me because it's not going to sample down below here. And you can see a progress bar, or that it's working down here, chomping away on it. So much cleaner. You can see our result there. If I'm happy with that, I just hit OK, and I hit OK, and it makes the image, and you can see it'll add another layer here. Okay, there's my copy, a new layer here in Photoshop, and you can see it still has the background layer. So an image like this, I would do it as 2 pieces so I can have it sample the other areas. So I need to make sure that I click on my background layer again. If I try to do it from this one, there's nothing there to sample. So I'm going to, again, go up to Edit, Content Aware Fill. Oops, sorry, I forgot to do something. Never mind. So I need to select the area that I want to get rid of now instead of this area. So I have my lasso tool selected. So I can just click here, drag down, just select this area since it's a little fuzzy up there. Maybe, we'll see. Okay, so now that I've selected the tree trunk, I can go up under Edit, Content Aware Fill. And again, I can make my brush bigger, and I can get rid of all this tree so it doesn't think that I want to put more tree in there, because all I want to put in is sky and ground. So erase all the sampling area up there that's not useful, and it will start working on it. So there are some other options while it's working that we can talk about. There, so it did a pretty good job cleaning off the bottom. So it will show you, if you do it in multiple layers, the other layer that was existing before, but it's really clean underneath there. So the main tool is the sampling brush tool up here in the upper left. So you select that to either add, or if you hold down the Option key on Mac or Alt key on Windows, it will change from plus or minus, or you can go up here and click on it. And so if I want to put sampling area back in, I can do that, or I can click the minus and I can erase sampling area. The lasso tool will let you add to the selected area that you had. If you hold down the Option key on Mac or Alt on Windows, you can subtract. You can see the minus sign to the right side of the lasso. So if I want to make it really tight, I can do that. So if you've used a lasso before, or even if you haven't, one cool little trick is wherever you start and wherever you end, if you let off from your start to your begin, it draws a straight line right back to it. So if you're trying to draw a straight line, it's really hard with a mouse, but that will snap and make a very straight line for you. So if you know that that's a straight line up that tree trunk, which it's not really, but just do your selection, boom. Of course, I did there we go. So the other tool up here is the hand tool, which lets you move the image around if you're zoomed in. If you want to move the image around in your box. But a keyboard shortcut is, if you have the brush selected, if you hold down the Shift key, and Photoshop just crashed on me. Thank you very much. And it's going to tell me that it crashed here in a moment. Okay, I'm going to go into another photo and open it through Lightroom, then I'm going to quit Lightroom. So this is a photo I shot over the weekend at the George Washington Bridge in New York. Underneath it is a little red lighthouse that not many people know about. Let me go up and show you. So one of the problems when shooting with an extreme wide angle lens and something tight is you end up with distortion. So in order for me to straighten it up, I used Lightroom's transform tools and got the Lightroom to be pretty straight, but I ended up clipping, or essentially cropping part of the picture to do that. Now you can tell it to constrain crop, and it will crop it automatically, but it's going to crop off the bottom of the picture and all kinds of things, which I don't want to do. So I'm just going to use Photoshop to go back in and fill in that area. Okay, so I'm going to right click on the photo, edit in Photoshop. So if we want to say fill this area, so I'm going to use my Lasso Tool, and I'm just going to draw around here to the right, come up here, let it snap, and it draws a real straight line like that. And now I'm going to go up to edit, maybe content aware fill. And so you have several different options on the right side also. So you can have it not show the sampling area, which makes no sense to me, but I'm sure somebody wants to do that. If you want to reset it, this is a reset button. You can change the opacity of the overlay, and you can change the color of the sampling area. And you have choices of the different types of fill settings they have. So you have color adaptation, which allows the brightness which looks for contrast and brightness as part of the adapting. And so that tends to be more useful for gradual color or texture changes. So you can choose different levels of it. Default seems to work pretty good most of the time. So for this image, let me go ahead and, wow, if you look at the preview, it's done a hell of a job. And I thought I was going to have to erase the bridge. So here's the preview over on the right side. So you can see it has added sky, clouds, trees, water, railing to this photo. And it did it without any help. If I, let's see how it looks when I change my color adaptation to very high. Yeah, not seeing any difference. Okay, so if you have an object or a content that has curved patterns or circles like that, you might want to use rotation adaptation. And again, it's seasoned to taste, and you'll see when I use that on this picture, it's not gonna like it. It warps it because it thinks it wants, especially you see how that railing did in the treetop. It wants it to be, let's go all out. It wants, it's trying to make something not straight. So it's looking for things that are curved, and it's going to make them curved. Didn't look much different. So we'll go back to none, and you can see the little progress bar down here. That's looking pretty sweet. You can also click on the scale, and that is good for repeating patterns, different sizes, or different perspectives. So if you're, say, shot a brick wall at an angle, and so it looked like the bricks were bigger in the foreground than the background, that would be the one to use then, and that would kind of scale the transformation and make the fill in much better. If you have a picture that I'm going to check the scale, is mirrored, and you, so say picture of a person and their eyes were the same on both sides, but they're missing one of them, and you wanted to put it in, use a mirror, and it will mirror from one side of the photo to the other. So it's really good for things with horizontal symmetry. So that's another option up there. So then also you have the ability to change the output settings. So you can output it to a new layer, to the current layer, or the duplicate layer. So you're making, I don't know what the difference between duplicate layer and new layer is. I never looked that one up. funny. Some things you look at several times, you don't even think about it.
Lauren, Lawrence, Mark.
Yeah.
I think what that duplicate layer does is it copies the layer before it up. It just copies it as opposed to something brand new with nothing in it, I think.
Well, when you're outputting to a new layer, it's putting whatever. So
yes.
in this situation, it's putting just this area that I've highlighted into that layer. So that's something to play with. Yeah, well, I don't know. Okay. So if I want to also have it in this picture, fill in the area on the left side, I can go ahead and select that area using the Lasso tool. And I'm going to click back on the brush. And I'm going to scroll across to see how it's looking there. Did a pretty nice job with that too. So that's looking pretty good. This one we didn't. Sometimes you have to go in and it will try to copy things that aren't part of the picture into it. So let's just go ahead and hit OK. And now when we come back to our photo, we can see that that new layer has filled in our spots. And if I deselect, it'd be pretty tough to tell what's going on.
Why is on the left, it's sort of a turquoise?
Yeah, it picked up a little different color change there. So when you zoom in, you can see it didn't do a perfect job there. So that's an, oops, didn't mean to do that.
What was it picking up? Where did it find that?
Oh, it's mixing the red and the purple there. Red and the blue water. So that's one of those that, let's go back and let's turn that layer off. Zoom back out and use my Lasso tool. And let's go back to edit. Let's go back to edit, content or where fill. And this time we're going to tell it not to use anything from the lighthouse. So as I erase, so you can see I have the minus sign in my cursor. So I'm erasing the sampling area, which is that green overlay.
And how do you go from minus to plus again?
There's one of two ways. You can either hold down the Option on Mac or Alt on Windows, and that'll toggle back and forth, or you can go up here and manually select it up in the upper left corner. I find it easier just to drop my thumb down on the Option or Alt key. So interestingly, it did a worse job. So looking here at the we can zoom in on the preview also. So it did better by having more area in there. So let's put some back, and you can play with it and just see how much sampling area it really wants to have, and it's going to, yes. So this is probably a photo that if I wanted that to be exact, I would only select the railing and then have it only use railing, not see what it's trying to do is it's trying to add stone up there for some reason. So if we tell it to, oops, I overdid it. Let me Command Z, undo that. What happens when I take out stone? So
was your original one picking up sky that made it that color rather than the red?
Could be. But now when I got rid of stone, it's adding lighthouse down here below here. So one of the things that I wish, and maybe they'll do someday, is you can't make this preview window any bigger. I wish you could kind of move this, slide one of these two over so I could see more of the preview window, but you can't. But you can change the magnification on it and then move things around. So let's put the lighthouse back in, put the stone back in. Could have made my cursor bigger to make it faster. Now let's see what it does in the preview. And so you can see it working down here in the lower right, and then when it's done, isn't that interesting? Did so much better on the time before. See if we add some over there. So some things might take you 2 or 3 shots at, still, but this is so much better than the previous version. That didn't help. Interesting. So I've done this, I did this photo Monday after I shot it, and then I did it a couple times in practice, and results are different every time. You'd think they'd be the same, but they're not. Let's go ahead and cancel. So a picture like this, let me zoom in a little bit on it. If I want to get rid of these, if I want to clean up the snow, since we're getting a good snowstorm in Vermont soon, I thought, well, let's see what my snow picture looked like. So just for a little stick like this, I'm going to go ahead and use the spot healing brush here to do that. And I'm going to make it about as small as I can. And I can, on the keyboard, change the size of the brush with the brackets keys, which is right below the plus and minus on your keyboard. Or you can change the size up here, but I find it much easier to do it by keyboard. So if I just come down and copy it, come down across that, it's probably going to do a pretty good job with that. But if I want to get rid of all of this, that's a lot of little work. So let's see how the spot healing brush does for that. So let's just get as close to that as we can. Get in there, get in there. That's a nice shape. So now if we go to edit, content or aware fill, and Photoshop just got mad at me again. Did it really quit? Maybe not. That might have been from I think that window just popped up from the crash earlier. So we can see here in the preview, it's done a great job getting rid of that mess. Now, let me zoom in on that preview a little bit. And, I would want that shadow to be straight, so that I would come back and fix with the clone tool. But that's, overall, that's pretty sweet. Again, it's one of those where so I'm seeing some stick here. So it's finding some stick, it's adding some stick here so let me unsample that area, see how that changes it. It's picking this stick up from someplace. Oh, wait, I see where it is. I didn't even select that. So let's go grab and add that to our selection. See if it gets rid of it. Sure did. But when I changed this area, I made my shadow even clunkier. So I'm going to come back to my brush, switch it back to, now it crashed. My Photoshop is refiring here.
Yeah, Lauren, I got a question for this Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Do you always use the lasso tool? Like when you make a selection, do you ever use one of the other selection tools, like the magic wand tool?
You can use any of the selection tools.
Okay. Like, is it more accurate like with different tools? Or?
Well, you don't have to be very accurate. That's the beauty of it.
Okay.
So any of the tools that we'll select will work.
All right, cool. Thanks.
Good question. Thank you for asking.
Oh.
Lauren, this is Anita. So when you copied those from Lightroom into Photoshop, it didn't copy it in Photoshop Because once you crashed, you lost all of it?
Correct.
Oh,
It,
okay.
it is copying it. So, you know, I rarely crash. It's only when I'm doing Zoom and Lightroom and Photoshop. Zoom,
Oh, okay.
because the Zoom program that does the distance learning here eats up a lot of resources.
Okay.
So I rarely crash. But if I was crash susceptible, I would save every time I do something. You know, do it and save it. You know.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So we're back to. So you could, you know, if you could use the rectangular marquee tool to highlight something too. You know, you can do it that way, or use the ovals or the polygons or whatever you like. However you want to select an area. But again, you don't have to be real picky about it. Okay, there it goes. So now it's working on it. And we can see it's. So this time, if I zoom in on that, which is interesting, which is what happened the times before, which is why I wanted to show you this picture. You can see that it copied in this shadow area that's down here. Oh, that beach ball of death just hit me again. So let's try a smaller area, see if that makes a difference on my crashing, on how much horsepower it needs to do that. So again, I selected the area, went up to edit, content, aware fill. Don't like seeing that beach ball. Okay, so now when I zoom in on my replacement area, so we can see it's adding a lot of the shadow into it.
Yeah.
So this is the perfect place to erase the shadow from the sampling area. And when I do that, I'm guessing up here in the shadow, wow, it made it even, where's it picking up shadow from then? Up here. So we can see it's still picking up shadow from someplace. So let's get rid of as much as we can. Maybe even down here. And it's going to pick up some of these other sticks too. Try to put them in there. There we go. So that cleaned it up a lot better. Still have this trouble spot up here, but again, that I would come back and just clone that and just let it work like this and just clone straight across there. Okay, so that's pretty much all there is to it, as long as your computer doesn't crash. If you want to reset all your settings, you can come back up here, and either one of these are resets. So if you want to reset your sampling area, click there and it'll bring everything back. If you change your settings down in here, you can reset them with that, and that will cover it. And we just went down again.
Hey, Lauren, is the difference with Lightroom that Lightroom only really has like that spot healing tool?
Yes,
Is that, okay.
yes. So if like the picture I had of the lighthouse, Lightroom
Right.
would never fix that.
Okay.
You can
Okay.
never fill that back in. That would be a major problem for it.
Well, Lauren's rebooting. The perspective control, where you actually, try to make the straight line straight in terms of his lighthouse. It works wonderfully in terms of areas that then, the Lightroom tends to, mangle. So in the corners, those two triangles in each of the corners, this technique works really fabulously in terms of restoring those corners.
Yeah, it's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it really is.
It's fabulous. I mean, 8 out of 10 times, it looks like, that you didn't do anything to it other than straighten it, and it doesn't lose any of the edges. So it's a fabulous tool.
Yes. Yeah. Especially in when you can come back to Photoshop and do that.
And Lightroom doesn't have any of that capabilities, really.
Right.
It just cuts out spaces where it can't adjust.
So one of the things I was going to show you is how the difference between just doing the edit and fill and the edit content aware fill works on, especially on something like this, but we'll see how this handles this, or if I'm going to explode again. There. So this is a scene I shot in Chile last month. And so, I mean, to me, it's just absolutely amazing that you can get rid of something as major as that bridge. But you can see it's trying to add some water in the picture here. So
Can you say again the difference between edit content aware versus what?
So if Photoshop wouldn't keep crashing on me, the edit, if you go to edit and fill, you can do content aware there. The difference with this new content aware fill is that it allows you to manage the sampling area. So there are lots of times when you would try to fill something and it would bring in like part of the bridge to the water if you're doing the George Washington Bridge photo. So it would sample that bridge, try to add some bridge to the water where there shouldn't be any bridge. So with the content aware fill, you are able to control what is being sampled and thus control what's going into the fill in area. And that's the beauty of it. And it tends to do a little bit better job of filling than just the edit and fill also.
Thank you.
Does that make sense?
Sort of. I'll have to try it before I'm still a little.
Yeah, if you just select an area, say you want to get rid of the log in the middle of the picture, if you just select that log and do edit and fill, or you use the spot healing brush, you'll see that it's bringing in things that, it might bring in part of the red from the boardwalk here. You don't want any red out in the middle of that stream. So with the sampling area, you can tell it, don't use any of the red, use only the water or the other green or whatever you want to have go into the stream there. So it really gives you a lot more control over what is being sampled, what is being used to fill in the areas you want to fill in, whether they're small or large. some things it's just faster to use the healing brush, like I showed you the grass in the snow. You know, if it's just a little piece and there's all snow around it, it does a fantastic job. But if you're trying to do a bigger chunk, it doesn't do a fantastic job. And it has always frustrated me when I was filling and things would come in that I didn't want to have in there, and I had no way of controlling that or eliminating, you know, that.
Could you just show again with, you know, with a cursor, where you start? I mean.
Yeah, so you start with selecting something.
Right.
So say you want to get rid of the waterfalls in this picture.
Okay, so you lasso that.
So I just lasso that. Then I just go up under Edit, Content Aware Fill. And that will.
So it's that you do your selection first?
Yes, you have to select first.
Okay.
Absolutely. So it knows what it's using to select.
Thank you.
That's pretty much it. Anybody else have questions? You know, it's a pretty simple tool that is extremely powerful, and for me, worth the monthly fee for when I do need to do cloning.
This is fabulous. A photo I was working on in Lightroom. And I wanted to clone something. I've been afraid to take it into Photoshop. But now I know how to. Thank you.
Yeah.
At one point, you had highlighted a big section. It was a neon green. I think I missed that portion. Would you mind repeating what that was for?
So when somebody's got the let me see if I can mute everybody. Okay. So when let me get a smaller section here and just say I want to try to get rid of this little log here. So if I just select that and I go up to under Edit, Content Aware Fill. So the area that is lime green is what Photoshop is using to figure out what should go into the area that I have selected. So in this case, it's not doing it, but if it was using part of the red boardwalk, I could just erase that part of the red boardwalk as the sampling area, and it would not use any of the red boardwalk when it's calculating what needs to be in the area that I've selected. Did that answer your question?
It did, thank you. Was that actually an update? Because I've used this tool, but I haven't updated, so I'm not familiar with this green section that you can subtract. And
so the content aware fill, I'm going to mute everybody again. The content aware fill only came in October with the Photoshop 2019. You could do it. I'm sorry. You could do it by doing Edit Fill and then choosing Content Aware, but you didn't get this new window and the ability to change the sampling area.
okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You bet. Any other questions?
I know it's probably beyond the scope of tonight, but if you had a series of pictures and this was the best one, but the people weren't on the bridge and they're in another picture, is there a capacity to get them from another photo and add them to this one?
Yes, that's pretty easy, and yes, it's beyond the scope of tonight. But yes, absolutely doable, and it's not that tough to do.
Thank you.
Hello, Lauren. I had a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, my question was, when you're selecting the item that you're going to try to crop out, do you have to surround the whole item, and is it pulling from like vertical, like above and from the sides, or is it just like mirroring like the items from the sides? Like
so it's pulling everything that's within this green box. So it's sampling, it's using all the information. It's saying, well, I'm guessing he wants some water from that stream. I'm guessing he wants some of this other log. I'm guessing he wants some of the green grass to go into this area. So it's everything around it.
So you can get that little waterfall piece out then, right? You maybe crop that out, the part of the waterfall that's in the top right. Would you want to take that out to, or is that calculated into?
That's being calculated into what's going into this area that I selected. Yes.
Okay.
Somebody else have a question? Anybody else? So I do have a round of Lightroom classes coming up soon. When's Lightroom start? Learning Lightroom January 23, 30th, and February 6th. That's going to be evening sessions, 3 sessions, everything you want to know about Lightroom, almost, or at least getting started in Lightroom. Let's put it that way. I have an advanced Lightroom class coming up in March. So that is a more in-depth Lightroom where you'll learn a lot more about the develop module. I work focus heavily on the develop module in that class. So you're really making your images pop. You know, every digital, at least raw file, needs to have some work done on it in some program. And Lightroom by far is the fastest, easiest, bestest one. So some of us, you know, a lot of people think, well, I shouldn't have to do anything to my photo. That means I didn't shoot it right. Well, it's not true. It's the incapacity of the camera and the sensor that doesn't bring out everything you see. It's all there. You just have to bring it back out, and using Lightroom is the way to do it. So I do have those classes coming up, and they're available online or in person here in New Jersey. Also do a lot of travel workshops. I just had a cancellation for Tuscany. So I have Tuscany coming up in May when all the poppies are out in the fields. And I just had a cancellation on my Chile solar eclipse adventure this summer. So I have one opening for that. Although I have a couple people interested, but if you're wanting to go to Chile this summer, that's going to be a true adventure. So there's nothing, I went to the solar eclipse in Oregon in 2017, and first time I'd really seen a total solar eclipse. And it's just one of those things that you can't explain and you can't photograph the total experience. You just have to experience it. And so I've decided I'm an eclipse chaser, and I'm going to see as many as I can in my final days on Earth. So doing this one in Chile this year, then again, another one down in Chile in a different part of the country in December of 2020, which is winter. And that one's going to be a great location. So anybody have any other questions?
Lauren, quick question.
Yes.
More of a clarification. This is Michael. When you're like on that picture right there, when you're doing your selection, if you were to sort of condense that green box closer to what you want to fill in, would you get a better image out of it, or would it be too condensed that it would really be not what you would want to see?
You're better off getting rid of everything in the green box that isn't what you want to have put into your selection area.
Okay, so a tighter selection would be a better selection if possible.
Maybe.
Okay.
So if this one I only wanted to have, if I wanted to fill this in with only grass, if I deselected the water, then only grass would come into there. If I wanted to have it only water, then I would deselect all the grass and other logs, and that would fill that in with water.
Okay.
So
That helps.
the great thing is you see a preview happening right there, right now, real time, and you can change, you can add or subtract to the selection area, and you can just play with it and see, well, this makes it look a little better. This makes it look a little better.
Okay, so nothing happens until you actually save it then.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Lauren, I have a quick question. When you go ahead and save, did you say it goes back to Lightroom? It'll save in Lightroom?
So here from this window, you would hit OK, and it would create a new layer in a Photoshop document. When you save, if you opened it from Lightroom and you save that Photoshop document, it will make a copy in your Lightroom catalog. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. Anybody, anything else?
Lauren, it's Jill. I do have one question. Now,
Okay.
I don't know whether it's going to happen when I upgrade to 2019, but when I do something in Photoshop and then I click Save, my Lightroom is still open and I can see that it is being saved in Lightroom as well.
Yes.
So, will that, I don't see it on yours, but do you, I mean,
Well,
do
I
you
didn't.
close Lightroom?
That only happens when you open the image from Lightroom. So
Okay.
this time I didn't because of our little crash problems. So if I save this one now, it's not going to save it back to Lightroom because I didn't open it from within Lightroom, unless this was a Photoshop document that I already had in Lightroom, then it will update it.
All right, so you can have both windows open and you can see that it is in fact being saved. I mean, I sort of slide over the Photoshop window to make sure that it's really been saved in Lightroom.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
Okay.
Normally that's what I do. I have them both running and I don't have any problems.
Okay, great, thank you.
And it's not a big deal.
All right, thanks.
When you save it, if you brought it in from Lightroom and you do the editing in Photoshop, when you save it, don't you have to save it as a different document, or else it'll be destructive?
No, when you open an image from Lightroom in Photoshop, it creates a copy of your original, and so that will be a new file, and so it's a depends on what your settings are, either a Photoshop or it'll save it back as a TIFF file. So you're not changing your original photo at all. You're making a copy.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Where are you in Jersey, Lauren?
I'm in Somerville, which is just north of Princeton and New Brunswick.
Okay. Thanks.
See, there are some chat questions, but I can't get to them. I'm having some real fun here today. Let's see if I can do that on my other machine here. So was there anything in chat that is anybody able to see the chat? I don't know why I'm not seeing it today.
No, there are no questions
It's
there.
basically thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Okay.
And I thank you too.
I also thank you, Lauren.
You bet.
Thanks,
I'll be
Lauren.
doing more of these, so keep an eye out. And if you have any thoughts on what you'd like to have covered in some, drop me a line.
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Bye, Lauren.